More on this, let's bring in Mike Pompeo, the former Secretary of State and a Fox News contributor. Mr. Secretary, good to have you with us today. So, what do you think would happen if Zelensky and Putin do sit down across the table from each other in a bilat in the next couple of weeks or so?
Well, I think that'd be real progress. Certainly wouldn't happen under President Biden. Look, they'll get a chance to both state their positions. They'll each state maximalist or relatively maximalist positions. Because they know that there is some tough negotiating that lays ahead. So neither of them is going to walk in with just a deal that the other one's going to say yes to. So we shouldn't hope for that. But they'll begin to take the measure of where you can actually resolve this. And you start to see it take shape. You heard the European leaders talk about this in the White House yesterday. They began to think about what the security guarantees would look like, what the architecture of that would look like, realistically where the line of contact might resolve, and ultimately how you might deliver a long, just, and lasting peace in Europe in a way that President Biden simply couldn't achieve.
So in terms of the line of contact, we know that Putin floated to President Trump that he would like all of the Donbass region, including the part of Donetsk, Sloviansk, and Kramatorsk, which is under Ukrainian control right now. I mean, can you see Zelensky saying, yes, you can have that in return for security guarantees from European countries and the United States?
John, that seems very unlikely to me. It seems to me the line of contact will almost certainly be wherever the forces are. That is where the actual line of contact exists when the agreement is reached. I think that's why it's going to require even more U.S. pressure in the days and weeks ahead, because Putin today thinks, look, why do a ceasefire if you're inching along? And it's expensive, lots of manpower, lots of losses, but still firing a couple hundred rockets, drones into Ukraine every night, putting pressure on Zelensky, and then making advances along that line. So I think he's going to chase real estate until the agreement hits, and the United States is going to have to demonstrate that it and its European partners are prepared to impose real cost on Putin before he'll come to say, yep, okay, good enough, and then allow the security architecture to fall into place.
In terms of exacting real costs against Putin, I was speaking with the former Vice President Mike Pence earlier today, who has the position that he believes that President Trump should immediately levy severe sanctions on Russia just to keep Putin focused. And he reminds me of, and I followed him on this trip, we went to Turkey, where he talked with Erdogan about leaving the Kurds alone. And he said the one piece of leverage that he really had to get Erdogan to do what he wanted was a list of sanctions that President Trump was going to slap on Turkey if he didn't play ball. What do you think about that idea?
John, I actually remember that. We ended up sanctioning the Turkish foreign minister, I think their finance minister. Those sanctions stayed in place for less than 48 hours before the Turkish leadership cried uncle. Yeah, I think in the end that's probably right. Remember what Putin will be giving up. By allowing the security architecture, everybody talks about troops on the ground. The most important thing he'll be giving up is that the Ukrainian airspace will be patrolled by the coalition of the willing. No longer missiles and rockets able to be fired into Kyiv and surrounding civilian populaces. So he's going to keep at this on the ground until there is economic pressure. I think the way you just described it, it makes sense. And we shouldn't forget the critical nature of these secondary sanctions. Not only against India, our friend, our partner, but against the Chinese, who continue to provide resources to the Russians that are killing Ukrainian kids every night.
One last point I wanted to ask you about, and that's the legacy media's take on everything that's happened since Friday. They were very critical of what happened in Anchorage. And here are some of the headlines from yesterday's meeting. New York Times, Europe's leaders headed off giveaway to Putin. Washington Post, Europeans, Ukraine steer Trump away from Putin's view after summit. Independent UK, Trump broke off his meetings with Europe's leaders to call his friend in the Kremlin. Why? The Guardian, all smoke but no fire as Zelensky emerges unbruised after Trump meet. And Caroline Leavitt went off today at the beginning of the briefing about all of the, to quote Spiro Agnew again, nattering nabobs of negativism who've been riding Trump over something that seems to be working.
It's actually worse today than when Agnew made that statement. They were just ignorant then. Now they are downright malicious and anti-Trump, and you can see that. Look, they forgot that President Trump for 4 years didn't give up an inch or allow an inch of Ukraine to be given up. We were very successful at deterring Vladimir Putin. They forget the historical fact that this invasion occurred because for a year Putin built up troops and the United States and Europe did nothing. And so, my advice to the White House and the press team is ignore these folks. it's all just foolishness. Stay on the mission, stay focused, get real objectives, get real outcomes on the ground, and deliver a just and lasting peace for Europe. It's achievable. It's a lot of hard work, but if you pay attention to the New York Times and the Washington Post, you're only going to cause your own cardiologist to have to prescribe more medicine.
Well, there's another famous saying, and that is, you'll never be criticized by someone who's doing more than you. So,
Well said, John. Well said.
We'll see where this goes. Mr. Secretary, good to catch up with you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.